Welcome back, basketball fans, to another massive update on the state of Philippine basketball. If you are a fan of Gilas Pilipinas, you know that the journey to the 2027 FIBA World Cup is anything but a straight line. It is a roller coaster of triumphs, heartbreaks, strategic masterclasses, and sometimes absolute miracles. Today, we are breaking down a monumental shift in the Gilas Pilipinas landscape, focusing on a headline that has sent shockwaves through the local basketball community. Coach Tim Cone can change only 3 miracles. Jamie Malonzo is being returned, and the entire side of Gilas Philippines is bracing for a massive paradigm shift. Right off the bat, let us establish the gravity of the situation. Gilas Pilipinas has just navigated one of the most grueling stretches in the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers. We are talking about absolute physical wars against regional heavyweights like New Zealand and the world-ranked powerhouse, Australia. The results of the recent window have forced head coach Tim Cone to look deeply into his roster, his system, and his ultimate vision for this national squad. The headline speaks of 3 miracles, and in the world of Tim Cone's meticulously crafted 12-man rosters, those 3 miracles represent the 3 pivotal reserve spots. The 3 roster changes he is legally and strategically allowed to trigger to save a campaign when the going gets impossibly tough. We are looking at the likes of RJ Barrientos, Troy Rosario, and Justine Baltazar waiting in the wings, ready to be the spark, the miracle that Gilas might desperately need when the primary game plan hits a brick wall. But the absolute biggest story we are covering today, the development that has every Gilas fan on the edge of their seat, is the triumphant, emotional, and highly anticipated return of Jamie Malonzo. Malonzo is being returned to the active fold, and this is not just a standard roster update. This is a culmination of a grueling, year-long saga of devastating injury, unexpected overseas detours, sudden heartbreaks in the Japan B-League, and a phenomenal redemption arc that saw him clinching gold at the recent Southeast Asian Games. Jamie Malonzo is back, bringing his elite athleticism, his defensive tenacity, and his unmatched energy back to the side of Gilas Philippines. In this video, we are going to unpack every single layer of this developing story. We will dissect what Tim Cone's limitation to just 3 roster changes means for the tactical flexibility of Gilas Pilipinas against elite global competition. We will analyze the intricate details of Jamie Malonzo's return, what it means for the spacing, the defense, and the overall identity of the team. We will look at the painful lessons learned from the recent battles against the Tall Blacks and the Australian Boomers, and how the current iteration of the Philippine side must adapt to survive and thrive on the world stage. Grab a seat, settle in, and let us dive deep into the tactical chess match and the emotional comebacks defining the current era of Gilas Pilipinas. To truly understand the weight of Coach Tim Cone's current predicament and the significance of his roster limitations, we have to look at the underlying philosophy of the man himself. Tim Cone is not just a coach. He is an institution in Philippine basketball. With 25 PBA championships to his name, he has built his entire legacy on continuity, chemistry, and absolute mastery of a specific system. When Cone took the reins of Gilas Pilipinas, he made a controversial but calculated decision. Unlike previous national team iterations that featured massive, rotating pools of 20 or 30 players, Cone insisted on a tight core group, a 12-man roster, augmented only by a tiny handful of alternates. He believes that international basketball is not won by throwing a random assortment of all-stars onto the hardwood. It is won by 5 men moving as one cohesive unit, breathing the same basketball air and executing defensive rotations with their eyes closed. But this philosophy comes with a massive, inherent risk. When you rely on a core of 12, what happens when injuries strike? What happens when a specific matchup against a towering team like Australia exposes a fundamental flaw in your size or your shooting? This brings us to the concept of the 3 miracles. During the FIBA qualifying windows, the technical rules and Cone's own rigid parameters mean he only has a microscopic margin for error when adjusting his active roster. For the recent window, after trimming his pool, Cone left 3 specific players on the outside looking in. The dynamic playmaker RJ Barrientos, the veteran presence of Troy Rosario, and the towering versatility of Justine Baltazar. These 3 men are the miracles in waiting. Coach Cone himself has stated that picking the final 12 is an unimaginable burden. He has stressed that those left out are not cut from the program. They are simply waiting for the exact moment their specific skill set is required. If the offensive engine stalls, as it painfully did when Gilas shot a dismal 33% from the field and a catastrophic 23% from beyond the arc in their recent outings, Cone can only pull one of these three levers. If he needs instant perimeter creation and fearless shooting, he calls upon the miracle of R.J. Barrientos. If he needs veteran bruising in the paint and a big body to throw at the Australian forwards, he summons Troy Rosario. If he needs length, rebounding, and floor spacing from the center position, Justine Baltazar is the answer. But he cannot overhaul the team. He can only inject these specific, calculated changes. It is a high-stakes game of poker where Tim Cone is holding on to his three reserve cards, waiting for the perfect moment to play them to shift the momentum of an entire nation's World Cup dream. This immense pressure on the roster is exactly why the second part of our headline, the return of Jamie Malonzo, is a seismic event for Gilas Pilipinas. To call Malonzo's last 12 months a roller coaster would be a massive understatement. Let us rewind to early 2024. Jamie Malonzo was at the absolute peak of his powers. He was a high-flying, defensive stopping, transition-finishing heartbeat of Barangay Ginebra, and he was cementing himself as an irreplaceable two-way wing for Tim Cone's Gilas squad. Then, the unthinkable happened. A severe calf injury during the PBA Philippine Cup quarterfinals completely derailed his trajectory. He was sidelined for months, forced to watch from the bench as his teammates fought on without him. But the adversity did not stop there. As he was finally nearing recovery in mid-2025, Malonzo made a shock move. His contract with Ginebra expired, and he took a massive leap of faith, signing a lucrative deal with the Kyoto Hanorers in the prestigious Japan B-League. It was supposed to be the start of a glorious new chapter, joining the ranks of other Filipino imports dominating overseas. Instead, it turned into an absolute nightmare. After just 5 games in Japan, his contract was abruptly terminated. The reasons were murky, tied to team needs and abrupt roster shifts rather than lack of skill. But the result was the same. Jamie Malonzo, one of the premier talents of his generation, suddenly found himself without a club, without a clear future, and deal with the immense mental toll of a stalled career. This is where the true character of a player is forged. Malonzo did not fade into obscurity. He returned home. He swallowed his pride, got back into the gym, and refocused his entirely energy on the one thing that has always welcomed him with open arms, the Philippine flag. His redemption began in December of 2025 at the Southeast Asian Games in Bangkok. Surrounded by uncertainty regarding his professional club career, Malonzo suited up for Gilas men. He went from 0 points at halftime in a crucial game to battling fiercely in the fourth quarter, helping the team secure a gold medal. It was a poetic, hard-fought victory that proved his physical health and his mental resilience. Now, Malonzo is officially being returned to the main Gilas roster for the highest levels of competition, and Coach Tim Cone could not be more relieved. You see, during Malonzo's absence, Gilas Pilipinas has fundamentally lacked something that cannot be taught: elite functional, international-level wing athleticism. While Justin Brownlee continues to perform superhuman feats as our naturalized anchor, he needs elite defenders alongside him to take the pressure off. In the recent losses to New Zealand and Australia, Gilas struggled mightily against aggressive perimeter defense and transition attacks. They lacked a forward who could switch onto multiple positions, disrupt passing lanes, and finish through contact on the fast break. Jamie Malonzo is that exact player. Standing at 6'7", he has the size to bother international forwards and the lateral quickness to stay in front of guards. Coach Cone has famously compared Malonzo's role on this team to Jason Tatum's role for Team USA at the Paris Olympics. It is a brilliant analogy. Tatum, despite being an NBA superstar, sometimes saw limited minutes because of the specific tactical needs of the American squad. Similarly, Malonzo might not need to take 20 shots a game for Gilas, but his presence, his professionalism, and his readiness to execute specific, high-intensity defensive assignments make him invaluable. Cone has gone on record saying that no one feels worse about not playing Malonzo than he does, acknowledging the sheer depth of talent on the roster. But with the offensive struggles Gilas recently displayed, relying too heavily on isolation plays and failing to execute the signature triangle offense smoothly, Malonzo's ability to create chaos defensively and generate easy transition points is no longer a luxury. It is an absolute necessity. Let us transition to look at the broader picture, the side of Gilas Philippines as a whole. The team is currently in a fascinating, somewhat precarious transitional phase. Yes, they have successfully advanced to the next round of World Cup qualifiers, which is a massive achievement. The program's continuity is paying dividends. But the cracks are visible, and the global competition is only getting fiercer. The recent window exposed a startling reality. When Gilas cannot dictate the pace, when they are bullied physically by teams like the Australian Boomers, their half-court offense grinds to a devastating halt. We saw young sensations like Kevin Kiambao and Carl Tamayo, players who are absolutely tearing up the Korean Basketball League with stellar scoring averages, reduced to mere afterthoughts against the Australian defense, combining for barely any points. This is not a knock on their immense talent. It is a stark reminder of the massive leap in physicality and tactical execution required at the FIBA level. Coach Cohn has been incredibly protective of his players, refusing to throw them under the bus, stating clearly that the problem is not their shooting ability, but rather the team's failure to generate quality looks. They were disrupted. They were pushed out of their sweet spots. They abandoned the structured sets of the triangle offense and fell into stagnant, predictable patterns. This is exactly why the integration of Jamie Malonzo and the potential activation of the 3 Miracle reserves are the defining storylines moving forward. Gilas Pilipinas can no longer afford to be a one-trick pony. If the primary action involving Justin Brownlee and June Fajardo is shut down, there must be a counterpunch. The return of Malonzo provides a dynamic slashing threat and a lob target that completely changes the geometry of the court. His mere presence forces opposing defenses to collapse, which in turn should open up the perimeter for shooters like Calvin Oftana and Chris Newsom, and create more operating space for Kiambao and Tamayo to showcase their versatile games. Furthermore, we must address the elephant in the room, the health and availability of our towering big men. The absence of Kai Sato and the persistent injury issues surrounding AJ Edu have left a massive void in the paint. Coach Cohn has been adamant that while they deeply miss Sato's rim protection and offensive touch, the team cannot afford to sit around and cry about it. They have to play the hand they are dealt. This means relying heavily on the veteran savvy of June Fajardo, the raw energy of players like Quinnen Milora-Brown, and playing smaller, faster, and more aggressive lineups. Malonzo returning bolsters his small ball approach perfectly. He can easily slide to the power forward position in international play, allowing Gilas to run opposing heavy-footed big men off the floor while maintaining a formidable rebounding presence through sheer verticality and effort. The road ahead for the side in Gilas Philippines is incredibly steep. The margin for error has evaporated. Every single possession, every single defensive rotation, every single roster decision by Tim Cohn will be magnified 100-fold. They are no longer the plucky underdogs hoping for a moral victory. The expectations have been raised. The nation expects them to compete, to execute, and to secure that coveted spot in the 2027 FIBA World Cup. The recent painful losses were a necessary wake-up call. As Coach Cohn wisely noted, it is through failure that you hopefully get better. They have learned that relying solely on grit and heart is not enough against top-tier global teams. It requires flawless execution, elite shot quality, and the ability to adapt on the fly. As we wrap up this deep dive into the current state of Gilas Pilipinas, the narrative is crystal clear. We are witnessing a pivotal chapter in the history of Philippine basketball. The burden on Coach Tim Cohn is monumental. He is operating a high-performance machine with a strictly limited toolkit, fully aware that he only has those 3 precious miracles, his reserve players, to pull him out of tactical emergencies. The pressure to make the right call, to insert the right player at the exact right millisecond, is a responsibility only a master tactician of his caliber can shoulder. And right at the center of the storm is Jamie Malonzo. His return is so much more than a name being added back to a stat sheet. It is a story of profound human resilience. To suffer a career-threatening injury, to endure the sting of a failed overseas venture, and to fight your way back to the pinnacle of national representation is nothing short of inspiring. Malonzo embodies the very spirit of the Gilas program, battered, tested, but absolutely unbroken. His athleticism, his renewed hunger, and his defensive brilliance are the exact ingredients Gilas Pilipinas needs to break through the offensive stagnation that plagued them in the recent window. The side in Gilas Philippines is evolving before our very eyes. They are learning hard truths against teams like Australia and New Zealand. They are realizing that on the world stage, execution trumps emotion, and tactical discipline is the only path to victory. But with a cohesive core, the strategic brilliance of Tim Cone, the anchoring presence of Justin Brownlee, and the triumphant return of a highly motivated Jamie Malonzo, the dream of the 2027 FIBA World Cup is not just alive. It is kicking with renewed ferocity. Thank you so much for joining me on this extensive breakdown. The journey of Gilas Pilipinas is an emotional one, and we will be here to cover every single second of it. If you want to stay completely up to date with all the breaking news, deep tactical analysis, and player updates surrounding Gilas Pilipinas and the broader basketball world, would you like me to notify you when we post our next detailed game breakdown? Keep your passion for the game alive. Keep supporting the national squad to the highs and the lows. And as always, I will see you in the next video.